When it comes to water, California is living on the edge. It's one of the most hostile, unpredictable regions on Earth.
Wildfires are burning out of control in Southern California.
To weather now, a strong nor'easter is expected to blow into the northeast.
Today, Southern California bracing for potential flash flooding and mudslides.
3 major fires are raging in Southern California.
But the state has managed to defy the odds by building this. It's the world's most impressive and controversial water system. It's taken California more than 100 years to build. In that time, they've had to deal with attacks from farmers, with collapsing dams, and these tiny fish. Hey, my name is Luis, and today we'll find out how this massive water system was built. Without it, there's no way that the state of California could survive. But can it keep surviving in the face of climate change? There's no guarantee, but let's take a look. At the start of the 20th century, California was a very different place. Less than 2 million people lived there. Then, between 1900 and 1910, the population surged by 60%. In towns like Los Angeles, this got people talking about the long-term supply of water. Was there enough to go around? Barely. Something needed to be done. It occurred to people that there was a lot more rainfall in the north than there was down here, that's Los Angeles by the way, in the south. And this is why. Winds come in from the North Pacific, dropping rain as they go. That's what you can see right here. It's the wettest part of the state. Some of these winds continue south and hit the Sierra Nevada here. That's a mountain range. These winds rise up and cool and drop the rest of their rain. By the time they've passed and reached Southern California, all their moisture has already been dropped. That's why the region below Sierra Nevada is so dry, barren and hot. The big question was, could this problem be solved by some good old-fashioned engineering? A plan was put forward to build a massive aqueduct, an artificial river which could carry water all the way from the north to the south. The Los Angeles Aqueduct, as it came to be known, would run all the way from the Owens Valley, a bit up north to Los Angeles, down here in the south. That was a total distance of 375 kilometers, crossing mountains, canyons and deserts along the way. No one had built an aqueduct at this scale since the days of the Roman Empire. But the people of California, they managed to pull it off. The size of this project attracted laborers from all around the country. When there was work to be done, there were paychecks. And who doesn't want to get paid? In 5 years, they blasted 142 tunnels, constructed 3 major reservoirs and laid down hundreds of kilometers of channels and pipes. The Los Angeles Aqueduct was officially operational from 1913 onwards. The entire system ran on gravity, no need to power any water pumps. The water flowed naturally from north to south, and it didn't take long for the city of Los Angeles to become rich and green. This marked the birth of modern LA. Without this aqueduct, it would never have grown into the city we see today. However, where there were winners, there were also losers. While most people lived in Southern California, there were also people in the north, and some of them hated the idea of greedy Southerners stealing away their water. It only took a few years for the Los Angeles Aqueduct to turn the Owens Valley into a dust bowl. And in the 1920s, some local farmers took matters in their own hands. They started attacking the aqueduct with dynamite. Eventually, the resistance died away, mainly because the leaders went bankrupt. But this raised an important question. Was it right for the state to move water like this or not? Then, in 1928, the St. Francis Dam, which was built alongside the Los Angeles Aqueduct, collapsed. Water rushed downhill, killing at least 431 people. The aqueduct itself wasn't damaged. It continued to do its job. But a lot of people were shaken. Maybe by playing with water like this, California was playing with fire. Since the completion of the Los Angeles Aqueduct, California's population had continued to grow, especially in cities like LA. And people were worried about water again. One aqueduct wasn't enough. Yes, they were nervous after the collapse of the dam, but really, they didn't have a choice. In 1928, a government film declared,
"If we are to survive and to grow, we must have the water that will enable us to maintain our mastery of the desert."
This brings us to the Central Valley Project, a massive federal effort to solve California's water problem. The Central Valley is a massive region, bang in the middle of California. Two major rivers flow through it, the San Joaquin and the Sacramento. Because of that, you'd probably think that the region was good for water. Well, not quite. Like LA, the Central Valley had suffered a lot of shortages. It came down to two main issues. First, for reasons we've looked at, the south of the valley was much drier than regions to the north. Second, in the Central Valley, rain is extremely seasonal. There's plenty between December and April, but droughts all through summer. The federal government in California decided to solve this problem with a system of canals and reservoirs. Just like the Los Angeles Aqueduct, the canals would be used to redirect water from the north of the valley to the south. Meanwhile, the reservoirs were for storage. They could fill up on water in the wetter months before releasing this water when it was needed again in the summer. Work began in October 1937. Along with hundreds of kilometers of canals, the most important part of the Central Valley project was probably the Shasta Dam. The 183-meter tall dam created a colossal reservoir, with enough capacity to store 5.6 billion cubic meters of water. It's hard to imagine what that looks like, but to give you some context, if you poured all that water into Los Angeles, that'd be enough to flood the entire city, to a depth of almost 5 meters. To this day, that makes this the largest reservoir in California. The Shasta Dam was completed in 1945, with other parts of the Central Valley project up and running in the next few years. Another key component was the Frye-and-Kern Canal, which carried water from Fresno down to Bakersfield. At 245 kilometers, it wasn't quite as long as the Los Angeles Aqueduct, but it was still an impressive build. And it has to be said, this project as a whole did make a massive difference. Together, all these reservoirs, dams and canals began to provide reliable water to more than 10,000 square kilometers of Californian farmland. That's an area about the size of Jamaica. And in more good news, no one attacked the Central Valley project with dynamite. However, just like the Los Angeles Aqueduct, the Central Valley project wasn't a final solution to California's water problems. Here's the thing. There was a major problem with everything they were trying to do here. They were building new projects as fast as they could. But at the same time, California's population was rocketing higher and higher. Between 1900 and 1940, the population had increased by 1 to 2 million every decade. But between 1940 and 1950, it increased by 3.7 million to a colossal 10.5 million. All these people needed water. Of course they did. The Central Valley project had only just been finished. But already it wasn't enough. To make things worse, in the 1950s, the whole of America was hit by an unprecedented drought. Too many people, not enough rain. In California, things didn't look good. When it did rain hard in 1955, it didn't really help the situation. There was too much of it, too fast. The rain overwhelmed California's dams and reservoirs. The state was hit by some awful floods. They killed at least 64 people and caused about $200 million of damage, about 2.4 billion in today's money. These floods were a bit of a wake-up call. Despite all that work, California's water system still wasn't fit for purpose. Maybe this was a moment in time when the state could have given up. Maybe they could have accepted the fact that this hot, dry, unpredictable place just wasn't a good place to live. But no, California rolled up its sleeves and launched another initiative. And here it is, the State Water Project. It was like the Central Valley project, but on steroids. More dams and reservoirs to capture water during rainy seasons, and more canals and aqueducts to transport water during dry seasons. Some of these features were bigger and bolder than anything the world had seen before. The project included the famous California Aqueduct. At 715 kilometers long, it was almost twice the length as the Los Angeles Aqueduct. It's an extremely impressive structure. At one point, the Edmondson pumping plant has to lift the aqueduct's flowing water over a mountain range. That's a height of roughly 600 meters. Like pumping a river over the top of the One World Trade Center. To do this, the plant uses 14 pumps, each one weighing more than 200 tons. Together, these pumps force the water upwards, then through a tunnel which runs through the mountains. No other pumping plant in the entire world lifts water higher than the Edmundston. Another part of the project was the Oroville Dam. At a height of 234 meters, it was and still is the tallest dam in the whole of the United States. You might have heard of it. The Oroville hit the news in 2017, when its main spillway failed. Luckily, the state and local agencies secured it, preventing a major disaster. But anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's get back to the 1970s. By then, the main components of this project, like the Oroville Dam and the California Aqueduct, were officially up and running. Together, these projects became the backbone of modern California. They were put to the test in 1977, when the state was hit by the worst drought on record at the time. But the State Water Project helped to limit shortages. In other words, it did its job. For the next few decades, things were looking relatively hopeful. The population kept growing, droughts were coming and going. But California's water systems were just about keeping up. By 2006, 23 million Californians, about 2/3 of the state's population, were being provided for by the State Water Project. But there was trouble ahead, this time from an unexpected source. Do you recognize this fish? It might not look like much, but in 2009 it threatened to bring the Californian water system to its knees. A survey found that all the dams and pumping stations in the Central Valley had disrupted the natural environment so much that these fish were suddenly dangerously close to extinction. Not to mention other native species like the Central Valley Chinook salmon. In response, a court invoked the Federal Endangered Species Act, under which the Delta smelt has been listed as threatened since 1993. To protect the fish, they placed seasonal restrictions on several Californian pumping stations. This was good for the fish, but it wasn't good for the people of California. All of a sudden, an area of farmland in the Central Valley was struggling to get enough water. Many of these farms turned to dust, and thousands of jobs were lost. When the State Water Project was first finished, this kind of problem just wasn't on people's radar. It was something that no one had planned for, something that no one predicted. But the Delta smelt wasn't the only issue that was starting to come to light. While environmentalists were discussing these fish, geologists were talking about earthquakes. See, California isn't just a tough place to live because it's hot and unpredictable. No, it also happens to have this fault line running right through it. That puts it at risk of earthquakes, and earthquakes aren't good for infrastructure. If a bad one happened, it could wipe out parts of the water system, flattening hundreds of kilometers of levees and dams. Just like that, millions of people across the state could lose access to water. And we still need to talk about climate change. I'll be honest here, out of all the challenges California has faced, this one is surely the biggest. In the last century or so, while all of these different projects were built, California's average temperature was on the rise. Now, the state is on average 1.4 Celsius hotter than it was in 1895. In the last couple of decades, these rising temperatures have thrown the state into a mega drought. It's the driest period which California has suffered in well over 1,000 years. And even the State Water Project can't cope with it. In 2021, they were thrown into a statewide emergency. And in 2025, the hot dry state was struck by these devastating wildfires. This is serious stuff. And it isn't only a problem for California. The state has become the largest producer of fruit and vegetables in the States. If Californian farmers don't have water, food supplies in the rest of the country will take a major hit. As of 2026, the situation has eased a little. It's been raining again, and for the first time in 25 years, nowhere in the state is currently suffering from droughts. But it feels like this isn't over. Climate change is a crisis, and in the next few decades, rising temperatures will push California's water system harder than ever before. So what happens next? Should Californians just pack their bags and move to a wetter state? Well, not quite. The state is now pushing ahead with another generation of water projects. It doesn't matter how hot it gets. It doesn't matter how dry. Californian engineering can fix it. At least that's always been the plan. First, here's a concept for a huge new reservoir, not far from Sacramento. The Sites Reservoir, as it's called, will transform a valley into a basin for storing water. All it will take is some watertight dams to plug up the valley's side. Construction is due to start in 2026, and it's expected to cost more than $6 billion. But for a lot of people, this project could be worth the cost. Every winter, the reservoir would fill with water from the Sacramento River. At maximum capacity, there'd be enough to provide water to as many as 3 million households. Next, we have the Delta Conveyance Project, also known as the Delta Tunnel. This one is an underground aqueduct. A tunnel would be dug from the Sacramento County in the north, then connect to the California Aqueduct down in the south. At 72 kilometers, that would put the Delta in the top 10 longest tunnels in the entire world. Underground, it's also safer from earthquakes, which is a pretty major plus. It's expensive, $20 billion, but then again, it might be worth it. Year on year, this tunnel could provide water to more than 3 million households. The project is still in the proposal phase, but if it goes ahead, construction could start at some point in 2029. Another project which the state is working on. Wait, how about I just show you? We've talked about the importance of storing water. That's what reservoirs are for. You can just fill them like bowls. But you can also store water like this. Then squeeze it out when you need it. The ground there could store more than 3 times as much water as all of California's overground reservoirs combined. Here's how it works. In some places, areas of underground rock are porous enough to absorb rainfall. When you pull water from a well, you're just pulling up rain that the rock has managed to absorb. As it turns out, the ground in California has the capacity to absorb, and therefore store a staggering amount of water. For example, take the Sacramento and San Joaquin valleys. The ground there could store more than 3 times as much water as all of California's overground reservoirs combined. Because of this, the state is looking to build recharge points. These points would use pumps to force excess rainfall down into porous ground. 340 projects have been proposed, all across the state. If approved, they could store enough water to support another 1.25 million households. On top of all this, there are still more projects underway, like this cutting-edge facility in Antioch, which converts salt water into fresh water. It provides drinking water to up to 40% of the city. Another facility in Orange County converts dirty wastewater into clean drinkable water. This one is the main source of drinking water for 2.5 million people. Together, all these projects are the latest chapter in California's struggle to survive. But the question is, with climate getting hotter, will all these projects actually be enough? What do you think? Can the state of California continue to survive thanks to these projects? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, I really appreciate it, and as always, we'll see you in the next one.